Hey folks, Colin here from Something's Recording, and today I'm going to show you how I use Softube's Tape Machine plugin to enhance my mixes in the box. We're going to be talking about tape today, but before we dive in, if you are ready to go a little bit deeper into the mixing process as a whole and really start to hone your workflow as an engineer, then I have just a tool for you. This is my 7-step mixing checklist. It is completely free, just a simple PDF that will guide you through the entire mixing process, step by step, to help you get professional and radio-ready mixes without the hassle and without the guesswork. Like I said, 100% free, and you can download it using the link in the video description. Now let's jump in here and start talking about Softube's Tape Machine plugin. I just want to show you a couple of the different ways that I use this plugin to enhance my mixes. Of course, I am mixing in the box, so this plugin gives me a little bit of extra, that analog vibe, to help my mixes pop and not feel so flat and digital coming out as they're finished. The first way that I love to use this plugin is to simply put it at the end of my mix bus chain. So my mix bus chain, I have the console shaper, I have a SSL style bus compressor, and then I follow it at the end with the Softube Tape Machine plugin. Now this is pretty much the stock way it comes up. The only thing I change is I run it on the B setting here. The B setting just helps me get a little bit more low end B from it, and then all I do is I click the amount up from 5 to 5.1. I just like it to be sitting a little bit higher on the VU meter. I'm usually sitting anywhere between -7 and 3 here. That's a nice range that if my meter's pushing between there on my entire mix, I kind of know I'm in the right place and I'm getting the sound that I want out of this tape machine. And then of course, since I'm running it on my mix bus, I have the tape speed all the way up at 30 IPS, excuse me. So let me show you what this sounds like. We'll do an A-B of it, and then we'll kind of walk through each of the different types here before we move on to other applications for this plugin. So let me show you with, and then I will click it off halfway through. You can hear how the mix changes without this plugin in.
One step, and it's much too far. Take 2 steps, way too close, but take 3 steps, and I'm in your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. One step, and it's much too far. Take 2 steps, way too close, but take 3 steps, and I'm in your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. One step, and it's much too far. Take 2 steps, way too close, but take 3 steps, and I'm in your arms.
So things get a little bit flatter, they get a little bit duller. We don't have as much power. When we take the tape machine out, we lose a little bit of power, especially in the low end. That's why I love the B setting on this. This B setting gives me a little bit of boost in the low end, so my kick drum and my bass get a little bit more power and they balance out inside the mix. Bear in mind, I do have this tape machine in from the get-go. This is on my mix bus, or my mix A here, that all my tracks are feeding into before I even start mixing. So I'm mixing through this from the beginning to have that extra low end and to have that extra oomph, that extra power from this tape machine. This time we're going to go through and I'm just going to play you through the different settings here, the different types on the tape machine, and I'll boost up the amount. You can hear how things get extreme and how they get just normal settings or down a little bit more subtle. We'll start on the B setting here.
One step, and it's much too far. Take 2 steps, way too close, but take 3 steps, and I'm in your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. One step, and it's much too far. Take 2 steps, way too close, but take 3 steps, and I'm in your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. One step, and it's much too far. Take 2 steps, way too close, but
They actually all kind of have their nice own sound. A feels the most balanced to me. B feels like it emphasizes the low end. That's where I'm getting that low power that I like. That's why I use that setting. And then C feels like it emphasizes a little bit more of the high end. So they're kind of like A's a little bit more across the board. B's your low end. C's your top end is what it feels like to me. Let's start with A here and let's push the amount. We'll pull the amount back. We'll just play with the amount knob here and see how our sound changes.
one step, and it's much too far. Take 2 steps, way too close, but take 3
So you can hear when we go all the way there, things get a little bit too leveled out sounding. We're pushing a little bit too hard into this tape machine. All the way up, we have the meter just slammed all the way up at the top. And when I pull it off, you can hear everything kind of gets a little bit more life breathed back into it because it's not so slammed. But right here in the middle, it's a nice little bit of amount of coloring on it. It makes sure the mix isn't so dull, so flat sounding, so just digital in the box sounding. A is a little bit more balanced across the board. B is where I'm getting that low end boost. That's why I like B. We'll start back with A here and I'll switch it to B. You can hear the low end emphasis that we get one more time.
One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps, way too close, but take 3 steps, and I'm into your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps, way too close, but take 3 steps, and I'm into your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps, way too close, but take 3 steps.
To me, that's a nice little boost, a nice little addition of weight on the bottom end of the mix. It helps me lock in my kick and my bass guitar, and that's the effect I really like to get from this tape machine. That's why I use it on the B setting here at 30 IPS. The next application I love for this Softube tape machine is on kick drum. Again, we're going to be using it on that B setting to get that little extra bit of weight in the low end, especially on kick drum. I love to use it on bass too. I don't use it on bass all that often, but I do use it on kick quite a bit, and it's always on my mix bus. So take a listen here. We'll go through the settings one more time, but this time we're using, again, 15 IPS, so not going all the way up to 30 IPS. A little bit more than we need at just the kick drum level. Definitely on a mix bus, I'm always at 30 IPS. But here on a kick drum, individual instrument, a little bit smaller part of the mix, we're pulling it back to 15 IPS, but we're pushing our amount a little bit more. So I want you to take a listen to what we're getting from this kick drum here. So we'll start with, and then I'm going to pull it off, and I want you to listen to how the low end changes, and listen to how the instrument changes as a whole without this tape machine in. So we're only pushing into about the 10 here on the VU meter. So we're not going so hard. Of course, we'll push it up in a minute to see what we can do if we push it all the way up with the amount. But here at about, where are we at? 5.5 or so, it's a nice little boost in the low end. So we're getting that little addition of weight in the low end on our kick drum, which of course is nice on kick drum. We want that nice beefy low end, but it also feels like it evens out the attack or the click up top for me. Take a listen one more time, and then we'll start messing with it. So in addition to getting that nice extra weight from the B setting, to me it feels like the tape machine's holding in that high boost, which is a nice effect of pushing into an analog emulation. I was going to say analog piece of gear. An analog emulation like this is that it's going to give you a little bit of taming on your high end, or it's going to hold those kind of boosts in place. It's going to take those kind of boosts very nicely. Now let's mess with it a little bit. So we'll go through our settings here. We'll see what each one sounds like. We'll see if we get the same kind of vibe. If A is a little bit more balanced, B is our low end, and C is our top end. And we'll play with our amount knob here. See what kind of crazy sounds we can get. Yep, feels like it's doing the same thing to me. On the C setting, it feels like it emphasizes the click up top a little bit more. The A setting feels a little bit more even across the board, or it could be emphasizing the mid-range because I feel like that's what I get most out of the A setting, as opposed to here on the B setting, we're emphasizing the low end, which is what I want out of the kick drum. So now let's mess with the amount knob here and see what we can get. So there we pushed it all the way up, and we weren't quite slammed yet. So you can open up this other setting here on the tape machine. We have a couple different functions. There is a mix knob, which is a nice thing to have. I don't use the mix knob all that often because I like just using the amount knob just to dial in the amount of color that I want on the sound. We have the speed stability here, so we can go from stable to something a little bit more wobbly. We have a high frequency trim if we need to boost or cut, or we can keep it nice flat here in the middle. And then we have a crosstalk knob too, which is always helpful, or always a nice kind of effect to have. But I opened up the side here to use the input and output so I could drive a little bit more into the tape machine and push it all the way, see what kind of crazy squash sound we got. And that's exactly what we got, a crazy squash sound. So this is a nice little plugin to get from Softube. It's a little bit cheaper than I would say the Slate digital tape machine, which is what I wanted to get all those years ago. I ended up settling on this, especially because it works a little bit better with Studio One. I think it inputs with their console effects, if I'm not mistaken. But it's a nice plugin to put on your mix bus. I love using it on kick drum or to put on bass, especially with this B setting, to get a little bit of extra beef, a little bit of extra analog sound from your low end. I hope that was helpful for you. I hope that gave you some ideas and some tips for using tape machines inside of your next mix. And if you're ready to go a little bit deeper into the mixing process and take your mixes to the next level, remember down below you can download my 7-step mixing checklist completely free and start creating more professional mixes in less time. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.